Welcome to The Ones Who Ran, a special series on the Agege Bread podcast. This is where we shine a light on the individuals who stepped into the 2025 Edmonton City Council race with courage, conviction, and a desire to make a difference regardless of the final outcome. In this series, we hear directly from those who put themselves forward for public service. They share their motivations, the challenges they faced, the lessons they learned, and the hopes they carried for their communities. These are the stories behind the campaigns, the human side of politics that often gets untold. Today, we're honored to welcome Jesse Watson, who ran in the ward Anirniq during the 2025 election. Jesse entered the race with a clear vision for a more connected, responsive, and forward-thinking Edmonton. Known for his thoughtful approach, community engagement, and determination to address local issues head-on, Jesse's campaign reflected a deep commitment to building a stronger city from the ground up. Though election night didn't end in victory, Jesse's journey offers rich insight into what it truly means to run for change, navigate the realities of municipal politics, and stay rooted in purpose when the stakes are high. Join us as we explore Jesse Watson's story, why he ran, what he hopes to bring to the council table, and what the experience taught him about leadership, service, and the future of Edmonton. Ladies and gentlemen, Jesse Watson. Nice to have you, Jesse.
Hey man, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
That's quite the intro. You made me sound really good, man.
You are really good. Wow. I looked at your Instagram and I'm mind blown. I've been looking forward to this conversation because looking at your Instagram and the stories you tell there, it tells me that many of us are oblivious of what's happening in this city. We get in our cars, we drive to work, we see the snow clouds, the rec centers are running, the buses are running, so everything is peachy. But here you are. Tell me, I know I tried to do a good job writing that, but I'd like to hear from you. Who is Jesse Watson?
Yeah, I'm just a guy trying to make Edmonton a better place. I have a small business, right, in Calder. I have a little coffee shop. I'm a landlord. I own a couple of properties. So, I've seen, as a coffee shop owner, you see the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? Mostly good, right? In a coffee shop, people are happy having a coffee, right? You're making their lives better. But you also see the nitty gritty. You see the real deal, right? I'd say a coffee shop's the most local thing you can have. You really see what's going on. And then I was at the city a long time. I was like middle management. Manage all the city's properties, leases.
At the city of Edmonton?
Yeah, city of Edmonton.
Oh.
So it gave me a good insight into, what's going on behind closed doors, so to speak, right? My business was broken in a couple times, over a span of 1 year. I felt there's this change in Edmonton occurring. The Edmonton I came to love 10, 12 years ago when I moved here. I'm from Southern Alberta. Wasn't the same Edmonton it was, and when you talk to people, you think to yourself, what is it? People feel something's off, but they can't always define it. They don't really know what that means, right? And you hear a lot of buzzwords like affordability, you hear buzzwords like housing, and all of these things. And I said, with my business being broken into, I see vulnerable population increasing, I see affordability for at least what that means for me. And I'm pretty well off. I do okay, right? Life is okay for me. But I think about the future of my family. And I was like, man, I got to do something. I got to run. And I think I can actually make serious change at City Hall. However, that I defined that at the time. And, I learned a lot over the election, which we can talk about.
We'll get into that.
I was a little naive, but no.
That was your first time?
It's my first time, yeah. But I love politics. I love it. I'm kind of obsessed with it. I like talking about it. I like knowing what's going on, and I like telling the truth. There's a lot of misconceptions out there about what people are trying to achieve, So that's me. I'm an economist. Like, I have a background in finance.
Oh.
People say you're not an economist because I'm not actually working as an economist. I heard that a lot on the campaign trail. So I like to caveat, I worked in finance, but I have a background in economics. And then I have a planning background. city planning. I never worked in planning. I like to caveat that because a lot of the destruction of the city of Edmonton is because of planners who were elected. Okay, I'm just gonna. That's my personal opinion.
Stay away from that.
Yeah, and then I have heritage conservation. I did a postgrad in heritage conservation. So protecting our past, I think, is very important as we move forward, and that could be built form, contextual, architectural, however you want to define history and what that means to you. That's important to me too. So I kind of like to summarize it saying, you can plan a city with a fiscal mindset.
Wow. Okay, hearing this from you and looking at your videos on Instagram, it's starting to make sense. What's your Instagram handle?
Jesse for Yeg.
Yeah. So go on Instagram, dear listeners, Jesse for Yeg. I can't put into words how good and informative those videos are. Go on Instagram, Jesse for Yeg. There's a ton of videos. They're very simple, but very well made. Passes the information in a way that you will not be confused. There's no ambiguity. If you want, you can go and do that. Now, speaking on what you said, there's a couple of things I wanted us to unpack from your intro. Why do we seem to now live in a world that is obsessed with buzzwords?
Yeah, I know, right? Like
this is the problem, but someone wassels in and just, drops this word and it seems to, it's an affordability crisis. Why are we obsessed with that?
It's just distraction from bigger things, right? Whether that's city, provincial, or federally, right? Like I hear housing crisis, and it's like, supply and demand, basic economics, right? You hear this stuff, and then you start seeing policy changes. You start seeing everybody talking about something. It's like they don't actually know what to do to fix problems, and it's like, so they create something to discuss to then basically change an entire narrative, right? And you walk around Edmonton and there are so many houses for sale. You walk around Edmonton, there are vacant new buildings everywhere, and you're like, well, how can you have vacant buildings and yet there be a housing crisis? It's actually affordability, right? And then you spend so much time listening to these comments, and it's like they don't want to admit the real problem at hand. So I learned that pretty fast on the campaign trail, right? Because everybody was saying, every single person who ran said there was a housing crisis. I didn't say that. Generally, most people that ran, I'd say more liberal orientated folks said that there was a housing crisis, and a lot of people on the campaign trail, because it's a municipal level, I'm not saying they lie, but there's a bit of they won't admit what ideology they are. Okay, so there's like, we're all centrists, we're all trying to achieve a common goal, we're all city, but the reality is you can definitely tell what people say in their platforms where they land on an ideology, right? It aligns to, say, a federal directive or something like that the feds are saying. So, I learned that, there's different ways to approach things when it comes to housing and affordability. So buzzwords, I think, are made up to essentially push forward agendas that, you don't want to necessarily deal with the problem at hand.
Fair. Another thing that you said that I wanted to highlight, because a guest that I had the other time, Diana Steele, kind of alluded to it. You say Edmonton has changed. You can't put a finger on what this change is, but you feel it. Me, I may not feel this change because I came here in 2016 as an economic migrant. My focus is get in my car in the morning, go to work, come back home. There's a lot that I don't see. And I was working 2 jobs at the time, so I really didn't have time to interact with the city. And people who have been here 10, 12, 20 years will understand better what this feeling is. Could you shed more light on that? What has changed?
So in planning school, you learn how to design a city. And there's this famous planner, her name is Jane Jacobs, and she was an Eastern US kind of policy advocate who talked about key things. And she said, eyes on the street is the safest street, always designed to human scale. Okay, and so there's like these principles you learn. And what's happened in Edmonton over the last 10 years is we've kind of eroded what neighborhoods used to be and your role in a neighborhood. And we've turned it into high-level top-down planning. And so what's happened is you have like all these incremental changes that end up changing how you feel in a neighborhood, to the point where, you might have a housing typology like where we are today. You have a typical bungalow style 60s, 70s community, right? And then you start dropping in rezones and density that isn't contextual. And then what happens is it starts to erode how you feel in the neighborhood, to the point where, we allow, especially downtown, the demolition of historic buildings turned into parking lots, to the extent where we have 290 vacant parking lots downtown, half of them illegal, because we won't enforce anyone because they're big landlords that have lots of money, or from Toronto or whatever. So I always boil it down to, when I have someone visit me in Edmonton, I always worry about the route I take them to get to my house. And it sounds like a really weird thing, but it's like, I'm coming from South Edmonton, I can drive through downtown and they can see how ugly downtown has become in terms of just vacant lots everywhere, housing, homelessness, which it is real, so maybe that's something we do need to see, but it's also like it's turned the fabric of what downtown, I think, what people in people's minds is. So I'm like, what route do I take them? And then what do we do? What do you actually do in Edmonton besides the mall? When my family wants to visit me in winter, I'm like, man, what do you do? Go skating, I guess? West Ed Mall? Like, is that all Edmonton has become? So when people talk about a feeling, we all travel to see beautiful things. We all travel to have cultural experiences, yet we neglect it in our own neighborhoods, in our own community. And we do it at the expense of some kind of bigger plan to, this is going to make Edmonton better by destroying all of our heritage, or this is going to make Edmonton better by plopping inappropriate buildings in context, because overall it kind of changes how you feel in a neighborhood. So that's how I would kind of boil it down.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Are you a business leader who wants to make a difference in the world? You need more than fluency in strategy, marketing, or even sustainability. You must understand how business interacts with society. Hi, I'm the host of Business and Society with Senthil Nathan podcast. In the 30-minute fortnightly episodes, I promise to bring you the best ideas to develop you as a leader who can help shape business as a force for good. Join me as I discuss with some of the world's leading thinkers to understand the role of business and society. Subscribe to the Business and Society with Senthil Nathan podcast.
Okay. I took a deep dive into your videos because the two guests that I've had on the show mentioned your name.
Oh, nice.
Oh, Jesse Watson. Go and look at his Instagram. Giselle told me that, and I met Jesse. They asked if I reached out to you, and I said yes, I did. Oh, you should talk to Jesse.
That's Jesse. Nice. Thanks, Giselle. Thanks, Diana.
Who the hell is Jesse? But then Diana said the same thing. Oh, did you reach out to Jesse Watson? Like, I've heard that before. I've been asked that before. Yes, I did. Oh, you should talk to Jesse. Go to his Instagram. Mine, I went to your Instagram and I'm mind blown. The only thing that jumped out at me after watching plenty of your videos was, how did you not win? I looked at the results and there was a 10% gap between you and the person who won, maybe a 50% difference, give or take, in the vote. How did you not win? And
Man, where do I start?
The reason I ask this, let me just lay this out, is looking at your videos, you clearly are a grassroots person. You're somebody who will see a thing and you take your camera and your microphone, you go out there, you're making a video. There's plenty places in the city that you covered that I can relate with. The Coliseum, the place in, is it Rosedale, where they're, So I'm like, how did this person, we all have been saying, oh, the way the city is going, we need change, and things can be better. And then we see someone like you, who clearly is not an establishment person, who is an independent person, who is actually doing the job of highlighting the issues that needs to change. And then he puts himself forward and he doesn't win. Are we afraid of change in the city? Why did you not win?
Yeah, I did pretty good on social media. There's I guess there's forces at Edmonton that's bigger than all of us. I did the best when it came to an incumbent across the whole city. Aside Jennifer Rice, her seat was flipped by a small margin, and she won last time by a small margin. But generally speaking, I did pretty good. But I would say it wasn't a Jesse issue; it was a city issue in all wards, right? And there's apathy. Apathy's high. When you door knock, you get to see. It gets really, it drains you a lot, because you see how the real Edmontonian lives sometimes, and you see how tough it is out there. Seniors at risk. And I think to myself, how, and this is aside, but how can people in elected positions see that and then do what they do? Right? When you talk about true affordability, whatever that means to you, right? Tax increases or funding something that's an ideological point of view. But so there was forces right there. Edmonton is a very, in the last 10, 12 years, has become, I don't want to say it's an NDP town. And that's okay. NDP as an ideology, where parties are now on the spectrum has changed, right? A conservative in Alberta is generally a centrist. But there's this comments out there that being a conservative in Edmonton means you're a mega maple or a Trump supporter. And so so what happened with me is I had a lot of fans. I call them super fans across Edmonton, and they started to put out. I'd say there's a lot social media. There's misinformation, okay? It happens. You can put anything you want out there, and it's hard to hold accountability, especially when they're fake accounts or whatever, right? And so there started to be a bit of pushback. I made it really fundamental in my campaign to meet with a lot of politicians at every level, NDP, Conservatives, Liberals, because I thought Edmonton's biggest challenge is actually working with other levels of government. You have swearing, you have name calling, you have some politicians that don't get along. So for me, there was some photos that started to emerge with some conservative leaning candidates. And then those photos started to get circulated saying Jesse is aligned to whatever level of government. Therefore, a vote for Jesse is a vote for Danielle Smith, or a vote for Jesse is a vote for MAGA Trump or whatever, right? And then you just had those forces started to gain traction. And what I love about a campaign is the doorbell cam. And I will tell this to everybody: when you're at a door, be very careful what you say.
Before you continue, I just wrote doorbell cams because I know in one of your videos.
Yes.
So continue, because I was going to ask you about that.
Because that you actually start to see what people say about you. And I was sent a lot of doorbell cams by people, and I struggled in my campaign to do. People talked about, I wanted to just be fact based, and a lot of people say that my videos actually are misinformation. And I worked at the city.
Really?
Yes, I see. Yeah, Reddit, mostly the Reddit threads say that I'm spreading misinformation.
Wow. Okay.
But I was at the city a long time, and I know where to look, and I know who to ask.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm also not a dumb guy, man. I have some educational background here, right? I'm a business owner. So the doorbell cam, I started to get these videos of what my competition would say about me at the door, right? Like, I'm married to an architect, so a big issue in Edmonton was infill. And so they're like, well, Jesse's hypocritical. He's a developer. He's married to an architect. What he's saying at the door.
Wow.
And this was my competitor saying that. So all these micro things, super fans, misinformation about even who you are. Some people started to get some notoriety of what they said. And so you had all these things that I think didn't help anybody across the city, but specifically me, because I was probably the most talked about in a negative light by other people across the whole city, which tells you what I was doing was in the right path, right? I was challenging the status quo, because I think what's happened in Edmonton, spending, ideological spending, what I would call it, virtue signaling, especially when you talk about affordability. It just wasn't working. And, so I pushed against that. And when you push against the quote unquote the establishment, you start to get you get a lot of flack. You get people pushing back against you hard because they don't want the truth exposed. Because, you can say, oh, corruption or whatever word you want to use it, but there is literal corruption. Like, let's be real here. Like, we can't be naive to that. So there was a lot of factors. A lot of it's myself too, right? Like, maybe I didn't door knock enough. Maybe I didn't raise enough money. Not all of it's on, I can't blame everything else, but there, I'd say the city as a whole had, parties were introduced. I'm sure others have talked about the party system.
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah. So there was just forces bigger than everybody. And, I came out pretty good, I think, because of what I was talking about and trying to achieve. But it just wasn't enough at the end of the day.
Let me tell you a bit of a short story. I started contributing to a blog that a friend of mine started. It's called Faith with Strategy. And the section that I do is personal development. The first article that I posted yesterday talked about personal responsibility. The reason your story, the last answer you gave resonates with me highly is because at the end you said, me. I have to take some responsibility. Perhaps I didn't door knock enough. Perhaps I didn't raise enough money. I absolutely, I like that.
Yeah.
Because you're not sitting here and saying that, oh, that, oh, that, oh, that. I became a personal development, aficionado because I had this boss in Nigeria who I went to one day and I was complaining. I was pretty young, my dad's friend, so he put me in a supervisory position. He wanted to train me. My dad was late at the time. He said, I'm going to do this for my late friend. I will train you.
Yeah.
So I went to him, complaining, oh, these guys that I supervise, they don't do this, they don't do that, and this and this and that. He said, sit down. I sat down. The day these guys that you supervise do what they do, what they should do, when they should do it, how they should do it, I will fire you because I will have no need for you. I'd be paying you for nothing. Now get out of my office. That flipped a switch in me.
Yeah.
I have to take accountability.
Yeah.
I have to supervise better. It doesn't matter what these guys do. Whatever they do, it's my job to fix. So I thank you for bringing that up. It's a really good point that I want all of our listeners to resonate with and make sure that in everything that you do, find a place where you hold yourself accountable. Don't wait for people to do it. They may not do it, but that's that. Now sorry, I digressed. What was the place of political ideology in the Edmonton Municipal Council elections? I've heard you say things like NDP Town, MAGA, what else did you say?
Crony.
Misinformation and things like that.
Yeah.
What effect did these things have in the final outcome of the elections?
I think it had a huge impact in the end, especially with the teacher strike. So most people in the election, I've been looking at platforms just out of curiosity, right, over the span, and people would not define what their ideology is. And municipal, you don't need to define it because you're just basics, roads and snow. But the reality is that everybody has some kind of ideological line. And most people, even myself in the beginning, not that I was ashamed or hid what I was, this sounds kind of crazy, but I did to an extent because I wanted to just skirt the line of centrist, because most people did in the city, right? But then you started to see endorsements and things for candidates, and the endorsements are unions, which tend to vote NDP. Then you started to see door knocking with MLAs. So you had Irwin, I think this is her riding, she would help Salvador, and so you saw these things start to happen, and you're like, well, is that ideological alignment, or is it just friends door knocking? Well, the reality is, if an MLA comes to your door with a candidate or without them and talks about a city councillor, there's pretty much an ideological alignment. And so there was kind of what I would say the people running who talked about fiscal accountability, and then you had people talking about a better, positive Edmonton, things are going great. In my mind, most of the incumbents who said things are great were NDP candidates. The people who talked about fiscal conservatism, whatever the word is, or savings, were the ones who want to change based on what you heard in the media and heard on the doors. So the last 2 weeks, the strike was happening, And I could feel it in the air that there was like a turning tide away from people who said fiscal, because they assigned fiscal conservatism with Daniel Smith.
Wow.
And the teacher strike, and especially Edmonton. So when you leave Edmonton, you kind of leave this echo chamber where the real world lives, like Calgary and places. But in Edmonton, it's like Smith is the devil. Smith needs to be fired. And so if you even said at the door, I would open up a door and they'd be like, Jesse, I love what you say. I need to support the NDP candidate because we can't have alignment with the UCPs. And
People
so
actually said this?
Oh, a couple doors, yeah, wow. For sure. And other candidates you talk to, maybe they had a sense of feeling of that too. So I could feel I was losing votes. And even people would reach out a week ahead of the election, and they would say, oh, Jesse, I heard you're UCP aligned, or I heard you're a conservative. And as I went through my campaign, I started to say, yes, I am. I wasn't ashamed to say I'm a conservative, because I shouldn't be ashamed to say it's just, hey. And
it's an ideology.
And I actually did a politics test. I was like, for shits and giggles, I'm going to do this. And I'm actually literally barely right. Because, I'm actually pretty much a centrist. Like, I care, there's a social obligation, but we have to have a fiscal duty. And so it's kind of funny. Yeah, I'm a conservative, but just a little bit. And most conservatives in Alberta tend to be just a little bit right. So as I went in my campaign, I was like, yeah, I support a lot of what's going on. I think it's okay. And so I think across the city, with this teacher strike especially, people voted for the NDP incumbents. And there was a lot of media ad spending. So there was a third party advertiser that was spending for a lot of candidates behind the scenes. Kind of, if you can call it a shadow party, whatever you call it, kind of US style politics, including the mayor who got elected. So they were ad spending, saying this guy's great, he's pro-labor, they're all NDP aligned. This guy's bad, he's PC aligned, he's supported by Daniel Smith. And so the last 3 weeks towards the election, you had that targeted across the city. And that definitely tips the scale, right? If you're a user just looking at your phone and you say, oh, this guy's UCP aligned, and there's a teacher strike. So people start to get swayed pretty quickly.
Make the connection.
Yeah.
So what is, if I'm understanding what you just said now, let's say I raise $50,000 for my campaign. Now, this third party thing that is running ads for me, are they getting paid from that $50,000 that I raised, or they are just on their own? It's kind of saying, oh, this is who we want, how does that work?
Yeah, no, they're totally, and I put in quotation marks, independent, third party, okay? So they were a conglomerate of unions, city unions, okay? Firefighter union, the corporate union, the office people, those guys. So they're all the unions together, and they register with the government. They say, we're a third party advertiser, which the UCPs did bring in this last term. So they said you can do donations for corporate, you can create a third-party advertiser, and you can create a party. So we had two parties created, right? Diana was part of a party. We had Tim Cardinal, who ran for mayor, had his own party. But behind the scenes, you could have third parties. And there was actually a few of them. One was an infill group. Another one was a Common Sense Edmonton. They called themselves kind of a conservative. They raised virtually no money. Like, it was a couple $1,000s. But the third-party advertiser that was the NDP union one raised tens of thousands. We're hearing hundreds of thousands. And the reason we hear hundreds of thousands is because I watch ad spends. They're all visible, right? And you can see what working families this group was called with spending. So that Giselle, who was on, I think, your podcast, she was backed by working families. She was the only one on working families, I think, that didn't win, actually. And I would put that up to her ward there was no incumbent. So it was a competitive ward. It's a little bit of a different race in the same mine where you have an incumbent. But, they started to ad spend, and thousands. I think Aaron Rutherford, who I ran against, had tens of thousands of dollars behind the scenes funding ads for her. Plus, she funds her own ads. But what's really, I think, hypocritical about everything, and I was truly independent, right? I didn't have no third party supporting me, but you raise some money. So the mayor, after he won, was like, I condemn third party advertisers. We need to go back to the old way. I raised 1/10 what the guy next to me raised, but he failed to mention that this third party was paying for his ads behind the scenes. And then they all say to you, well, I have nothing to do with that. They can do whatever they want. But you could also just say to them, stop.
Oh.
Please don't ad spend for me. Please don't endorse me. But none of them did that. And so that it's a bit hypocritical to put a post out. They were all putting posts out. I condemn Bill 50. I condemn all this stuff. And then they'll easily take the money behind the scenes. So at the end of the day, on the disclosure, you have to disclose what you raised. Say you raised $50,000. You put that on your disclosure. Working families, they have what they raised, but they don't put who they spend money on. There's none of that. It's just we raised $50,000 and it came from our members or whatever. So if you think about a cycle, you have city union people literally working on some of these incumbents' campaigns. The union supporting those same incumbents. The union dues, you're re-electing exactly what you're trying to achieve as a city government, right? Wow. You're a union employee. You want a raise. You want more money. Your union has established a third party funding the candidates who are pro-labor. Yeah.
This is like a maze. I'm getting.
Yeah, it's a little confusing, but
yeah. Wow. Okay.
A lot there.
I noticed things. One of the things I noticed that Jesse did, he came into my house, he sat down, he could have asked me for water. He didn't. He stood up, went to the tap, and got tap water. That tells me he trusts the city. Okay? Now...
That's true, yeah. That's funny.
Right? I noticed things. I make my decisions a certain way, but I saw that I'm like, he could have asked for water. And he didn't.
But you know what? You also made me feel comfortable.
Amen. Thank you.
Came in and, you're just like, chill, grab a seat.
Yeah. So, what is the reason I'm saying this is to preface this question, because we're not sitting here and saying the city is bad. No. He drank tap water from the city. I don't know how many of us that do that without filtering it, but here we are. What is wrong with the city of Edmonton? In your perspective,
the city, it's like a self-fulfilling machine. Okay.
Wow.
You always hear about bureaucracy. Okay. And one of my videos, I talk about this like micro example. There was this pump house at Rosedale, and you have this pump house had already 3 studies done on it about what we can do with it. Millions and millions of dollars spent about it. So because of all the studies, you actually don't have any money to do anything like physical. Okay. So they managed to squirm enough money to put a new roof. Great. Now this thing is right on the river. It has probably the most magical view you could ever have of the bridge and the river valley. It's like you can't experience it in another way. You're right on the river, and it used to suck water up for the plant. And so you look over the edge, and it's a 5-story drop to the river. It's a really cool experience. But they did the roof, but they didn't have enough money to put a railing, to put a staircase. The budget went over because it's the city of Edmonton. So I spent three years just trying to get a railing on this thing, and it was 20. I think I had 23 different approvals. At the point, I just went ahead and did it and asked for forgiveness, because you had so many different branches. I needed Indigenous relations, I needed building code, I needed planning, I needed zoning, I needed all these guys. And when you think about like return on investment, you think about change, it's very difficult to get people to change or to try something new. Unless it's approved by council or it's meeting some objective in a plan. And the city's very quick to say, well, the policy is. This is the policy. But the reality is policy is irrelevant. I've seen council waive policy when they feel like it because it's in the best interest of the developer or something like that. So it's like there's like a there's unwillingness to change. And all this is to say, council is a governing body who's actually managed by admin. Council doesn't manage admin. So council...
What does that mean?
So you kind of have like these 12 councillors and a mayor.
Okay.
Who are governors of a city budget at a city. They have one employee called the city manager, who then manages the whole city. 12,000, 13,000 employees. So the council can't go right to you, the worker, and say, plant this tree. But it can say to the city manager, based on these policies, let's plant trees in 3 hours instead of 4. But the reality is, if you have an administrative body that doesn't want to change, they're going to fight you at every turn to change, right? And so they give you reports that are half the story. They don't share all the true information. And as a council, if you're unwilling to challenge the status quo, you basically just have never-ending costs. So in my opinion, that's the fundamental problem, is you have an administrative body that fights change. And you have a council that's unwilling to challenge the status quo. So in my videos, a lot of it was about this: what was wrong, what we could do, which I think resonated with a lot of people. But again, the force is bigger than all of us. When you have those people in the administration, it's tough it's a tough.
I sit here and I giggle, but I'm giggling out of, I don't know, frustration, wonder, because it highlights what you're saying now, highlights how important it is to send maybe letters to your council people. And I know I sent one.
Oh, you did? Okay.
I did. It was about a few, I think it was to Ashley Salvador.
Yeah.
I never got a reply, probably because of what I sent. I was asking how I could identify as a non-tax-paying citizen.
Okay.
Because,
Yep.
if everyone can identify as what they want, that's what I wanted to identify as.
Okay, interesting.
Stop paying taxes, but I never got a reply. And I hope that one day she replies me. But yeah, it highlights how important it is to send these, because they may be there and not know what's going on. Because I never thought about it this way, that there's a council who has to go through a city manager who has to, and of course, if you bring in the unions, and the city manager may have some kind of influence over these things. And from if I'm listening to what you said, and I am, unions have some kind of power. It's not imaginary, it's real.
It's real.
So wow, we need to, as citizens, engage more with our councillors.
If
tell
they
them,
let you, and that's actually, and I'll say, like,
if they let me.
if they let you. So
okay.
I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
Ashley's pretty good. And what I mean by that, on her social media, she doesn't block you, for number one.
Yeah, you did a video on that.
Right? She doesn't censor you, doesn't hide comments, right? So when you think about dialogue and engagement, right now all politicians use is basically social media to communicate. But it's gone from 10 years ago, there'd be a town hall to talk about a budget. Now they broadcast from City Hall behind 3 levels of security. And so even this budget that, I don't know if you know, there's a budget that just passed, taxes have gone up to 6.9%.
Yeah.
Based on what you know, I'd ask you, do you know why taxes went up?
I think there was something about inflation and things like that, but the actual budget.
You mean buzzwords?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So here's the thing.
Oh God.
So here's the thing, and I don't want to get to whatever, but not one councillor
excuse me,
who's accountable for this, $4 billion operating budget asked anyone what they think about the decisions they're making.
I didn't get asked anything.
You didn't get asked anything, nor did you even know really what's going on. So you hear these things, inflation, maintenance costs, you hear these things, but when you dig into it, there's actually a lot of nuances. $2 million for bike racks, $25 million for buses to nowhere. You hear about these things, right? And you're like, wow, there's actually a lot of things that added up to increase taxes, but nobody really shared this, because for you to know about it, you got to call into a meeting, you got to sit there for 8 hours, listening maybe to something going on, but they have like 200 people viewing these things in a city of 1 million, which tells you how easy it is to dial in. So Ashley is good in the sense that she doesn't block, she doesn't censor, but she only broadcasts. She doesn't take your feedback. So when you sent that letter and didn't get a reply, it says a lot.
Yeah.
Even
an acknowledgement, say we received your reply, we'll look into that. Would have been, because I mean I was being cheeky. I was just frustrated with I don't know what was happening at the time. I'm like, why can't I identify as a non-tax-paying citizen? How do I do this? I mean, but even just saying, hey, I hear you, I can't do anything about this, that would have been it for me. It would have given me a sense that, oh, someone is there and actually listening. But you know, that's fine. So I thank you for all these issues you're highlighting, but I'm going to ask, what is the place of political parties in the city council elections? Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing, in your opinion?
You know, in the beginning, I used it to say it was a bad thing, but I actually have come to believe it's probably the most important. I think it's legit, because ideology already existed. Right? It's already been there. There's always alignments and allegiances in government, right? I remember very early on, I met with Tim Cartmel, who ran for mayor, and he was more quote unquote conservative than everybody else. You know, and I met with him, and he wanted to create this party so people would know their stance, and you can't lie. Like when you have a provincial party and they knock on your door, hi, I'm Janice Irwin, I'm NDP. You generally in your head have an idea of what that means, right? Maybe nowadays you don't, because there's, you know, everything's so messed up, like you don't know what NDP or PC means anymore, but generally in your mind you can think that. But as a city person, what was happening is people go to doors, call them, they'll say I'm independent, but then there's actually a third party backing them. Is that true independence? Ashley Salvador is backed by a third-party advertiser, but she was saying she was independent.
Who are these third-party advertisers? Because I've heard them a lot. Who are these people?
So there was really only the three, but the main one was this city union-backed party. So all the unions came together under an umbrella, and the umbrella became the third party, and it funded who they deemed were pro-labor.
So I asked Diana. Yeah, I asked Diana a question. Have we gotten over all the employer-employee issues in the city to the point that unions have nothing more to do than dabble into politics?
Yes.
Because is it a mind game? Is it a mind control thing that, you know, the union will now think for a group of people and say, that's where we're headed, because this person will protect the interest of workers? Is it okay, or is it not better to let the union members make that decision? Because the union exists to make sure that companies or establishments don't make decisions for workers. How are they now building themselves into a position where they are becoming the thing they are pointing fingers against?
Yeah, the unions that we used to remember were like fighting for better conditions for workers. They you know, the coal miner, the wages that were stagnant at 5%. The union now, you know, I manage unions at the city, right? A lot of them. I had 17 direct reports in my latest position, and they're all part of one union, and it was called CSU. And I'm not afraid to say this stuff anymore, because I'm like, I have nothing to lose. But you know, I would say that any given time, half those people didn't do work. Okay, and I don't want to, you know, I created this, and when I was at the city, I created kind of this like general guide of like work time. And in government, you always lose 15% no matter what of your day, right? No one's a robot, right? You can't work 8 hours straight. Like, so you get paid 8 hours, but the reality is when you're in an office world, you're not working 8 hours, most people, especially in government. Okay, it's just your mental capacity, and that's okay. But when you look at all these stuff, I had one girl, she was working 3 hours a week. I could confirm 3 hours a week of time actually doing real work in what I would quantify real
3 hours a week.
Yes.
I want that.
Oh, it was awesome. And she was chit-chatting. She was, she's out for coffee.
And she got paid 3 hours a week?
She got paid
for 3 hours a week?
No, because the reality is she was sick sometimes, or she has a mental, so there's a lot of challenges around it. I had a girl, she called in sick, found out she was at the mall. I asked for a sick note. The union. So what happens is she complained to her union.
That you asked for a sick note.
The union went to labor relations, who then calls me and says, Jesse, how much work do you want? Because basically this is going to go to a tribunal, and the union's going to fight the sick note.
You know that Diana told me this. Exactly what you just said.
Yeah.
That, you try to get rid of someone who is not being effective, and the union will literally call and say, how far do you want to take this?
I had a girl who dumped sanitizer on my desk out of a fit of rage. I had someone literally die. Okay, when I first started, he had some issues, and I was expected to work the next day as a manager at the city, right? And I had a guy sexually, he would rub my legs when he sits at my fucking desk. I would tell my boss nothing. Unions are power at the city. They are literal power. And when those same employees are giving money to the elected officials or helping the incumbents run, you can see how rough it can get. And
becomes an economy.
It does. It becomes its own economy. So
quid pro quo.
The union of the past isn't the union today. And it's become a political machine. And you want good pay, but I'll tell you, the guys on my team, they're $120,000 a year. They're making $120,000 a year in salary, which is a great wage. It's double the Alberta average.
Right.
To do not a lot. Okay.
And this ties into my property taxes.
Yes.
Because that's where the city gets money to pay for all that. Well.
So there's a picture I took the other day. Mm-hmm. And I love this one. I'm posting it everywhere. Basically, everywhere the mayor's talking about accountability and property taxes, and they work the hardest to fight for the average Joe. I post this picture of 7 people planting a tree.
I've seen that a lot.
Right?
I have a video, driving to work, where I actually stopped to make this video. I saw there were a group of people working, but I stopped and I looked, and it was just 2 people with actual shovels. And then there were like 7 people around there, so 5 people just standing there and saying, I don't know what they were saying. If I look through my phone, I'll find the video. But wow.
So when I was running that union back group, they sent a survey out to everybody because they wanted to see what candidates were at. The survey was basically pointless because they had already endorsed people ahead in a secret meeting, but that's besides the point. So when I talked to him, I said, I'm pro-labor, but I'm also pro-agility, right?
Okay.
So if you, for that example where you just said you had 2 shovels and 7 guys surrounding them, it's like, we can keep all these people employed, but we can just get them working differently.
Yeah.
And, maybe the roads are better. Maybe the trees are cut more, or the grass. I mean, you drive around Edmonton right now and it's like the grass is never cut, the trees are never pruned, the potholes service levels are getting worse. And this council will blame growth. They'll blame suburban growth. But the suburbs of the 60s aren't the suburbs of today. The suburbs of today are so dense, the tax base is more than your neighborhood here.
Yeah.
So it's offsetting those costs. So there's like a lot of misconceptions. So I was like, if a group can be agile and change, and if as a city we can say, look, we're going to keep all 9 of you working, but you're not going to be all 9 there. Mm-hmm. You're going to be like 3 and 3 and 3. Something normal.
Yeah.
That's what I mean by challenge the status quo. And no one's willing to do that.
So you're not saying you're not against unions.
No.
I'm definitely not against unions. We're just saying people can be made to work better, and we'll leave that at that.
Yeah.
Did you think that the election process was fair in terms of vote counting? I was going to leave out endorsements, but I wanted to ask you about endorsements in a separate question. So maybe after this one, we'll talk about endorsements. Was the election process fair? Do you trust the results that this was the reflection of what people wanted?
So I'm going to start by saying,
especially the vote counting process and the training of the staff that did the elections, things around that.
So I haven't posted really anything about the election, and I do that mostly because I don't want to be seen as sour grapes.
He lost, that's why
I lost, so he's complaining, because I've already seen that online, right? Like, some people say, oh, just give it up, Jesse, you lost, or whatever, right? It's like, but joke's on you, I actually got monetized on election day. So now my content's making a bit of cash. So it's like, well, now I'm definitely going to talk about the city. I'm leveling up, but not a lot. Trust me, it's peanuts. But
it's something.
The election was cooked. In fact, Edmonton was the only city in Alberta that didn't get something done on time. Now, one can say it's kind of coincidental that the only city voting NDP is the only city with all these incumbents that didn't get election results on the same night as every single municipality across Alberta. People will blame the government. So Michael Jans, he ran on the south side, he's an incumbent. He's shit talking the UCPs every day. Oh, Daniel Smith this. And it's like, manual ballot counting is the gold standard for Western civilization. I mean, the federal government does it and they finish it in one night. Danny Williams, the minister, said, how did Edmonton take 3 days to get results when every other city did it
in one day?
Now, so that's already one problem. So the woman running it hasn't been held accountable. She's still sitting there doing her thing. I think there needs to be a major accountability audit question, just from the sheer time it took.
Like, why?
If you just look at time alone, there's already a problem that needs to be solved. She's blamed, we had a labor shortage. And I'm like, well, how did you have a labor shortage when every single teacher was off? And they all wanted work. And they all said they applied, funny enough. Some polling stations, no shade to who was hired, but there was, some immigrants that were hired that couldn't even speak English.
Okay.
Fine. We had people taking papers, registration papers out of the buildings. We had the Forever petition. I don't know if you heard about that, about the petition to stay in Alberta in Canada through Thomas Lakazik.
Yes.
That petition, which you're not allowed to campaign on parkland, these places, was campaigning literally at the doors of these buildings, who endorsed candidates, mostly the incumbents, who then campaigned against the people running against them right at the door of the election sites. Okay?
That's not okay. On election day?
Yes. Wow. And during advanced polls. So you hear about boxes. There was some box votes, right? You heard about those
600
things.
votes.
Even the ward I ran in, there was a power outage, okay, in one of the sites.
Wow.
And everybody was, there was a sign on the door that said, can't vote. And then you heard that people in lineup actually carried the boxes. Like you, in line, carried a box.
To vote.
Yes. So there was a lot there. Now, a lot of this is misconception, but then there was actually counselors posting marked ballots on their social medias, which is actually a federal violation. Okay?
Wow.
It's a $5,000 fine or a 6-month jail term under the federal law.
If someone enforces.
If they enforce it. But guess what? Elections Edmonton, they don't enforce. So there was a lot of, we have a sitting councillor right now who did it, and nothing's been done about it. And that's
literally broke the law.
Broke the law. So, you look at the elections process and people can be like, oh, Jesse, this. Like, these are just the facts at hand, guys. And we can somehow pretend that it didn't impact an election. You heard 2-hour lineups.
Yes.
I've heard 7 to 10% of people didn't vote because of lineups. There was a baseball game that day. Now, all these little things add up, I had some friends in Strathcona were like, sorry, there's a game, we're not voting, which is a bit apathetic, We had polling stations changed. So imagine you're
last minute
for this election. So imagine you're a grandma, you voted at this school literally your whole life. And then you go there that day because they didn't get the voter cards out. Calgary got their voter cards out because of the mail strike. Calgary was smart enough to say, hey, there's a mail strike starting next Monday. We're going to get our cards out. What did Edmonton do? Nah. So they didn't get one voter card out, which is, so you didn't know where you had to vote, you had to go online. So most grandmas didn't go online. They go to the school, oh, there's no voter station here.
Bye.
Like, one thing, all these things, in my opinion, do add up to a major problem. And almost voter suppression, if I'd be so much to say.
Tactical.
So, yeah, you think about this and you're like, okay, it's a little bit coincidental that all these incumbents won. Did it change the outcome of a lot of things, or could it have been different? Yeah, I actually think so. Now, I don't think we wrote a vote count, whatever. I lost. I'm not looking for vote counts or anything, whatever. But I just think, like, overall, there should be an audit, a serious look at what happened.
Even just not to punish, but to understand and correct.
Exactly.
After every election, there should be an audit to understand why the things that should work the way they ought to work didn't. You know, me as a Nigerian sitting here, I listened to all of this. Even Rosalia told me yesterday that she observed that some people were turned away. They were in the voting station, they were in line, and they were said, oh, you can't vote because it's time up and things like that. How in Nigeria elections go the way it goes, and we have Caucasians coming to do election monitoring? I live in Canada now, and I'm looking and I'm saying, in Nigeria, if you don't have an ID, you're not voting. And that ID is not even your driver's license. You have to have an actual voter's card. I have one somewhere in this house. If you don't have that, you're not voting. Now, when you come to the voting station, that card, there's a machine that you have to punch in your details. If it doesn't come up, you're not voting. So when I see what's happening here, it makes me question why we have people from the West coming to Nigeria to monitor elections, when I think we're doing a better job.
You know, you're not the only first person to say that. There's a guy from India. He says India has 1 billion people.
And they vote and count in one day.
And they have voter cards. But Canada doesn't have voter cards. And, you know, so there's a lot of finger pointing and blame. Oh, the government, they brought in this rule. We used to have manual, you know, computer ballots. But at the end of the day, we did it to ourselves. We had time. We could have done a better process. And someone should be held accountable. Will they be held accountable? That's a question mark.
Time will tell. So, endorsements. Did you get endorsed by any? Why? How does that work? And I ask this to everyone, I'm scrolling through my phone, I see this post that says, Jesse Watson has been endorsed by the Community League of XYZ. How does that work?
Yeah, I didn't get endorsed by anybody. So here's the funny thing about this. So the people who were endorsed...
And you still came second. On your own.
Yes.
No endorsement, just on the back of
my merits.
Doing work, posting videos, highlighting issues.
Exactly.
Oh, wow.
I raised all the money I spent. You know, I didn't ask for money. I got money. It was great. So, yeah, like everybody who was endorsed by NDP-backed unions. That's it.
Wow.
So that's actually literally the story. So Giselle got endorsed by CSU, then got endorsed by Transit Union, then got endorsed by whatever union. They were all the groups working family with a third-party advertiser. The community leagues, now this is community leagues are funny, and someday I'll do a post about this, because if you are an organization getting money from the city, you should be nonpartisan. Okay? But those leagues are actually playing politics as well. So, for example, in the place I ran, I wanted to go to a meeting. They denied me to the meeting because of whatever excuse, to find out that the incumbent went. Okay, I was actually said, this was my favorite. There's a couple things that I partisan stuff, right? There was these United Way bids. So you can bid on a tour of City Hall. I won the bid. So you pay $30, you get a tour by one of your elected officials. I won the bid. To find out a week later, I couldn't attend with no explanation. They refunded the bid. To find out Aaron Rutherford was, you know, the girl I ran against.
Went.
Little coincidental, right? There's a farmer's market. I have a coffee shop. I asked the farmer's market, can I attend? They said, absolutely, yeah. We'll set up a booth. We'll set up a politics booth with you. You can do politics and coffee at the same time. 2 weeks later, I've made friends with all the vendors. I'm every Wednesday I'm up in Castle Downs. It's great, right? You're getting to meet people.
Yeah.
I'm selling and I'm talking politics, right? I actually, when people come to the booth, I'd say, hey, we can talk politics, or you can buy cookies.
Right.
And people would laugh. They would, I'll go for the cookies, right, or the whatever. The Friday before, I got this email. Erin Rutherford's at this event. Okay, the girl I run events. She's talking to a group of 15 people and is like, yeah, Jesse, like, I can't, how did he get into that thing, blah, blah, blah. That Monday, I get an email from that same farmer's market saying, people complained about you being there, so unfortunately, we're not going to allow you to come to the farmer's market anymore.
Wow.
And then I found out that there was this letter that was sent from the city, and it wasn't targeting me, but it was saying, hey, any group that gets money from the city shouldn't have political affiliation. So when you get money, say you got money, most of your money from the city, and then you got a letter saying if you are political, you might lose it doesn't say you lose your money, but there's some impact. So you're probably going to say,
you don't even have to say it. They just, hang it in the air. Yeah.
It's intimidation. So I got kicked out of a market. So did I get endorsed? No. But did I have forces behind the scenes kind of helping with things for other people? Yeah. And so that's like a real thing in these, and that's politics, I guess. It is what it is, right? But I was a little naive on those things. I was like, wow, it's cutthroat out there.
What is my power as a voter? Because, if I had time, I think we're going to do this again, because there's a lot that you're putting on the table that we need to open up. What is my power as a voter in the face of all these influences and factors? What power do I have to just wake up in the morning, go to the polling station, cast my ballot, and go home?
I've been thinking a lot about it, because people, after I finished, I didn't win. I was flooded, obviously. A lot of people were like, oh, Jesse, I hope you continue what you're doing. I think it's important, And it was across the city, so I had a lot of people. But now I have what's happening is people reaching out to me about stuff that they can't do anything about because of the policy or because of what council's done. And because change wasn't had, what's really frustrating about an election, and especially a city voter turnout one, because the city, I think the province, some ridings hit 60% turnout, but a city's 30, right? The federal is usually the highest. So people care, but they just don't care about the city one, okay? So, but what's frustrating is some of the incumbents now, like you look at the mayor, he won, he feels he has an endorsement of the people. But when you look at the numbers, 30% of 30%, it's actually 15%. And is that a ringing endorsement of what the people
15%
want?
15% of a million people.
Yeah, right? And it's like, okay, and those million people, did they all want bike lanes, and did they all want funding on shelters? So what's happened is they all feel they have the voice of the people. Therefore, what they're doing is the right decision. And so there's no changing it. So I get reached out, people are like, hey, what can we do about this? Can you come? Can you help? And I've been like, well, all we can do now is actually recall, which is we don't want to do.
Popular now.
Which is funny. It'd be kind of funny to do for shits and giggles. But you can actually do referendums. You can force referendums as a person if you get enough signatures. It's a high threshold. It's 10% of the population.
100,000 people.
But imagine say something was so important. It's like the city is going to spend $500 million on something, and you have 12 people there just not. Remember, we went back to Ashley's conversation. She's not asking you. Nobody's asking you. So the only way to take power back is to actually inform council. The other way to do it is basically filibuster hearings. And what I mean by that is if you can get enough people, so the zoning bylaw, when they changed the zoning so you can build 8 plexes or whatever, there's like 80 people that came.
Wow.
And they didn't listen to that, right? And they went ahead. But that 80 people took 2 days for council. So if you could get, say, like 200 people in this whole city to basically just go, you would stall government. That's how simple it would take.
Wow.
So I thought to myself, like, if people really want change, the proof is in the pudding, right? If you said, look, I just can't take it, my snow's not getting cleared anymore, we need more money for snow clearing. If you can mobilize enough people, you can get change. But are people willing to make change? That's the question.
Yeah, it didn't seem like people wanted change, you know. Now I understand better why there's a thing called change management, because you hear everyone in different parts of the city complaining about what the city is, where it's going, the direction it's going, how expensive things are becoming, the buzzword affordability crisis. But then it's time to vote, and we all elect the same people who make these decisions that we then turn around to complain. But it is what it is. Tell me about infills. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, like so I'm a planner.
Okay. That's why I wanted to ask that question, because I know you'll have a lot more insight.
I think infill's fundamental. It's absolutely required, and it's a natural evolution, right? Your house gets old, or typologies change, or you need some. Hey, we'll use the word affordability again. You want to convert your basement to a basement suite. Mm-hmm. Like, these are all natural evolutions, right? But what's happened is because we're, as a city, and I say city meaning council, we're so obsessed with housing at any cost. And I don't want to go conspiracy theory here, but the former mayor of Edmonton is the CMHC federal government board chair. So when you look at CMHC, they're the Canadian Housing Mortgage
Housing Corporation.
They're giving a lot of money to build, but they're only giving money to build rental. Okay, and when you look at the housing catalog from the CMHC, if you look at it back in history from the 40s and the 50s, it was ownership. Ownership has turned to rental in the last 2 to 3 years. So there's no more money for ownership. So everything you see being built, what's happened is we've turned house from home into investment. And so a lot of what's getting built right now, fiber units or more, which is why so many are against it, because it's massive on your property. It's maximizing the land, taking away parking, taking away landscaping, all of these fundamentals. I talked about Jane Jacobs, Eyes on the Street, human design. When you take those things away, that's what upsets people. The context is lost. And we're doing it at the expense of heritage, identity, and community. So I think when you just look at the city, when I was in the city, I managed the city's land. There is so much land in the city of Edmonton. It's undeniable. I mean, you can drive around, look at Blatchford, look at Northlands. There is land.
There is plenty.
And it's taking decades to build it as a city, yet we're willing to destroy our neighborhoods. So it's about priority to me. So the city themselves gave a report last year saying, hey, we're already at 2037 housing targets. We can slow down and re-engage people to make sure what we're approving is the right thing. And are they? No.
Oh.
So, from infill, it is important. I think it's contextual, meaning it should fit in. It shouldn't just detract from what your neighborhood is. Now, when you say this at council, you're called a NIMBY. Not in my backyard. I don't want it. But the reality is, it's hard for people to articulate a feeling. It's like the erosion of my neighborhood. If I lose a historic house here and I lose a historic house there, what's left?
Right.
If we're all just in these monolithic blocks, and I'll end with, we are building those with no windows in bedrooms because the code permits sprinklers. So so you're safe technically, but imagine you don't have a window. The most basic thing for like views, seeing trees is a window, light. As a city, housing's such an obsession that we're even willing to sacrifice your human dignity. So that's, to me, why infill's too far. It's too extreme. It's not thinking about humans. It's not thinking about good design and how we actually have to live.
Wow, that's an interesting perspective. Would you run again?
Probably not for the city, if I'm being honest.
Why?
It's tough. I need it easier. It's just the city, unless the parties get legit and there wasn't so much fakeness at the doors about who they were and ideologies around it, we'll see. 4 years is a long way. I think provincially is where I'm going to go.
Oh, okay.
I'm interested in some provincial stuff, and that's coming sooner. And I think Edmonton has an opportunity to change on the north side, especially. So we'll see what happens. But hey, 4 years is a long way. Right now, I'm just this guy posting about stuff about the city.
Yeah.
And I think it's important because there is no opposition to council. So I kind of see myself as the opposition to council. And I think about the media.
Right.
Okay, and it's funny. A lot of my posts, people are like, "Why isn't the media talking about this? Why isn't the media talking about?"
And
this?
it's right there. It's out there. It's visible.
It's there.
It's there.
So we have this. I post about got 500,000 views. This housing development that isn't done, and they're tagging the mayors. They're tagging everybody under the sun. No one's replying. The media doesn't reply. Then I post about a path in Dunluce. A path.
Mm-hmm. The one that has no lights.
The media reaches out. I post about the survey downtown, some stupid survey the city's doing about a vacant lot. The media reaches out. They reach out on trivial like things, but they won't reach out about challenging.
So they see what you're posting.
Oh yeah.
Because they're just selective. Wow. The media is supposed to highlight everything.
Yeah,
not pick and choose.
Exactly.
That's why what I do on my podcast is important to me. I am the one who decides who speaks to me. Yeah. Anybody who wants, even if you disagree with me and you want to come and sit down and have a chat with me, I'm open to that. Yeah. My goal is to put conversations in the open so that people know. I think that in this age of information, because I don't understand why we have all this information out there and then we're working hard to filter what people listen to or see or hear. Yeah. I don't want that. If we have information, let's put it out there and let the chips fall where they may.
Yeah.
But thank you for coming out to do this. Listeners, Jesse Watson. I'm going to put him on the spot and asking this because I know that there's listeners I have that always bring back questions to me and say, "Oh, bring this person back. Is this something you want to do again?"
Yeah, absolutely. I love talking about myself. No, I love talking about the city because look, now is more important than ever to talk about government. We're in an age of there is change happening, right? So there is, I don't want to, censorship. Even when we talked about the way you're given information, right? There's no longer asking. It's become telling. And that's why it's so important for us to talk about this stuff.
Yeah.
I can be called misinformation. I can be called lots of things, but that's not going to stop us from talking about stuff. And so, I'd love to talk more, and it could be about anything.
Okay. And the final thing I'm going to ask, because I've been told that I need to promote myself more. What is your opinion of the Agege Bread podcast? Me and my simple setup, and this thing that I do.
Simple is best.
I agree.
It's easy. You just lock and load, and you go from there. I know you were super accommodating, and what I like is you're not afraid to ask any question. And I shouldn't be afraid to
give an answer.
I was afraid to be called a conservative during my election. We shouldn't be afraid to talk about things because of greater forces, right?
Okay. I think that we're going to schedule, I have a topic in mind, which when I turn off the camera, we're going to discuss. I won't reveal the questions I would ask, but I have an idea of what we are going to talk about next. But hey, viewers, one day we'll have viewers. For now, listeners, this is Jesse Watson. He's real, he's true. Go to Instagram, Jesse for Yeg. Watch those videos and you will have a feeling of what I'm trying to describe. Words fail me. But yeah, Jesse, thank you for coming to the Agege Bread podcast on the ones who ran. It's a series that we do to give voice to people who ran but didn't make the cut. I don't think the CBC or the CTV or the Edmonton Journal or all those things, I don't think they'll chase you for this story. I don't think Anirniq or all the people who won would say half of the things that you said. It's not because those things are not true. It's because it's not beneficial to them. The people who win, there's things they don't talk about. No, I'm not shading them. It's just reality. If I win in a game of football, soccer, I'm not going to talk about the referee.
Yeah.
I won. That doesn't mean the referee didn't do some things wrong. Those things you will hear from the team that didn't win.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing your lessons. I appreciate you making time to come and do this. Listeners, until the next time that we do this, this is me, Emeka, the host on the Agege Bread podcast. Till we do this again, bye-bye.